Hello to this episode where we want to mod a Game Boy, an original Game Boy, which already has gotten a new shell, it seems, and some new buttons. And this one is supposed to get a backlight mod, which I've never done. I looked at a video beforehand and it looks, well, interesting to do the mod. So let's see how I will fare. As a comparison, here is my red Game Boy where I replaced the whole display section because it got eaten away by corroded batteries. It got a new lens which should have been dark, but you can't get that very easily. And it has got a backlit IPS display. It is, of course, black and white only because it's the DMG. It still has the Play It Loud red original case, original buttons, but new silicon pads, I think, to make it play better, so to speak. And it has currently the EverDrive by Crix in there, playing Super Mario Land, and as you can see, it works just fine and looks pretty decent, I would say. Let's see if you can watch it like so. Yeah, you can even dim it, and it has a decent battery life. Quite a couple of hours of playtime are possible, so I like it very much. However, the request here was specifically to keep the original display but to install one of these backlights. Backlights back in the day would have meant something like the Game Gear, where you have a compact fluorescent tube which eats tons of battery and yeah, is pretty large actually. But fast forward 30 to 40 years and you can actually build very thin backlights based off of LEDs, and there's a polarization filter that we also need to install. So yeah, that's gonna be fun. And this is seemingly the seller, not sponsored or anything, where this was bought. I didn't have to do anything with that. Let's first of all test if the Game Boy powers up before we do anything with it, so that we know that it isn't broken. I do like the case. It's kind of like a marbled blue-white thing. And there's nothing happening. That's not good. Nothing at all. The contrast wheel doesn't seem to do anything. There's no blip. Nothing at all. I think we will have to open this up. Maybe there's something wrong in here, because that would change the trajectory of this video, of course, if the whole machine doesn't work. Interesting. So yeah, there seems to be something off, because you should at least get the black bar if no cartridge is installed and the bling sound. But we don't get that. Opening up the Game Boy requires tri-wing screws originally, and this one here is still using the original tri-wing. So let's have a look. Something of this size probably. Let's see. Yeah, that feels good. And let's have a look inside. It's actually 6 screws. Okay, this doesn't look great, I must say. So there is visible corrosion here on the copper shielding. This looks not so great around the battery terminals. The audio board seems to have slight corrosion down here. Question is also if the power board is working. So I have the feeling that we might need to check voltages first. There's also a big splotch of corrosion here on the front PCB. The front PCB has all the buttons on it, plus the LCD screen. This is probably the LCD driver chip, I guess. And this looks similar to what I had on the red Game Boy. Let me fetch the front assembly. This is the front assembly of that one, and it was corroded here around the connector to the LCD, and much worse obviously, and in a slightly different spot, the alkaline destruction. The good thing is you can buy these completely new with better screens, with IPS screens, but some people do like the green original LCD screen, so sometimes they are worth saving if people want the original look. I don't care much for that look, but as I said, that's up to the person owning that thing. So let's see, maybe we can inject some voltages here, namely on this end, but I can't hook onto that, I think. Or can I? Oh, we can. That's actually working nicely. Then we'll see how much amperage it draws, but before I do that, I'm gonna check what the lab supply is actually set to. Oh, it's set to nothing because it's not plugged in. Yeah, it's set to 8 volts. We are not going to do that. This is the fine tuning. We're going to set it to 6 volts. That should do very nicely. 6 volts. Relatively low current limiting. Turn it off once more. Then connect this one. And then we're gonna have a look what it says when doing this. And switching it on. Oh, it goes into current limiting. So there is a short somewhere. It definitely goes into current limiting. Turning it all the way down. Checking once more. Yeah, it goes to current limiting and nothing's happening. So this thing is dead right now, which changes the trajectory of this video, I would say, from a please install my backlight to can we save this actually? Okay, I guess what I'll do is I'll disconnect the front assembly and see if the thing goes into current limiting when going straight like this. These should be fine. And yes, it goes into current limiting, which is not a good sign, which means that something is iffy on the main board. The question is what? So I think we'll have to take it apart and see if this is fixable. It looks pretty nasty, to be honest. So I took out the main board. The good news is that all the ICs look decent, and I was told that this thing has worked before, but you can see a little bit corrosion here. You can see quite a bit of corrosion here, which I will try to remove later. And I was told that the power board got fixed. Yeah, you can say that. There's definitely a botch wire, and it looks like this thing was utterly destroyed over here. So I would suspect that this thing isn't very healthy. I do have a power board here from the red DMG, which now has a clean power voltage regulator on it. And I think this one should still be good. It's definitely in better shape than the other one here. It's also a slightly different revision, I would say. So without doing a lot of process of elimination stuff, diagnosis, I would just desolder this here and put this in place and then inject some voltages on the terminals and see if this fixes the short, because I think in this condition, I think this is not making a lot of sense. So I'll quickly desolder this here and put this one in, and then we'll see. Okay, so I soldered this in place, and the eagle-eyed probably have noticed that I put in the polarity incorrectly, but even with the batteries it didn't work, so there was definitely something wrong. Check your polarity always. The springs of course go to the negative side and the plate goes to the positive, as it's also stated here on the board itself. So let's check if we go into... No, we don't go into current limiting. It is basically working. Oh no. Yeah, it's working, it seems. And that's a good sign. Let's hook up the display and see if that works, so to speak. It should be possible, like so. There definitely needs to be some cleaning, and I think the alternative power board is a good idea. And this flat flex cable is going in very, very not happily. Maybe also corrosion, I don't know. So there it is. Can you see that? You can see that, yes. So we're gonna try again. Like roughly so. Turn on the power. Turn on thing, and now we got something. Yes, result. So we didn't destroy it. Maybe we destroyed the power board, but that can go somewhere else. Now let's see if a game will boot up by inserting Tetris. That should be correct. And that is looking excellent, actually. I don't hear anything. Do we have the volume wheel somewhere? This is the contrast, which is nice. This is the volume. I think there's no audio. Maybe the audio is dead. I will check on this one here. But as you can see, it's definitely working. That's a good thing. Only drawing 50 milliamps or something like that. That is very nice. We didn't destroy anything. That is a good sign. All right. I cleaned up a little bit of the main board. The thing works now. The speaker's not working, but I think that the audio port is corroded because that switches the speaker on and off. But that shouldn't be the issue right now. The issue right now is we have to peel off the reflector at the back here and the polarizer, which is attached to it, and replace it with this contraption here, new polarizer and the backlight. So I'll do that using one of those knives here, and I hope we don't destroy it, otherwise this will require a full IPS mod probably. The reflector and the polarizer are off. Sadly, they separated from each other, which made things much harder than they needed to be. So if you can prevent that, I suggest you highly try not to get them separated. You really have to get under the very stiff polarizer foil and not the soft and thin reflector foil. It is out now. I'm not sure if I damaged anything in the process. I tried to clean it with IPA. IPA and LCD screens usually don't mix well, but this is the only way to get the glue off and everything. So you have to use it. And this is an experience I don't want to repeat in the near future anymore, because it was really, really a very annoying thing to do. And I'm not looking forward to doing another of these mods. So if you're faint of heart or clumsy, I think you shouldn't try to do that. And I do see some corrosion here as well on those traces. That might be a future problem. I could get out the Dremel and take off the solder mask, but I think I'm gonna leave it like that, and the owner will have to do that, I'm gonna say. Next, what we'll need to do is insert the polarizer in the correct orientation, because there are two orientations, this way or this way. We have to try that out, and then put the backlight in. There seems to be a sticky foil on there as well. I think this goes on there, and we need to solder some things here. The nice thing about this one is it already has current limiting resistors here on the flex PCB. Some other backlight mods don't have that, so keep that in mind. The screen still is alive, and I shoved the backlight behind this thing and the polarizer foil just to see if it still works. That is the case. The orientation is correct this way. If you turn it 90 degrees around, it will be inverted and very dark. You might like that, but I think this is better. We can also, I think we can test the backlight by using a multimeter probably in ohms mode, maybe in, yeah, I think in ohms mode. And I think probably this way around, I hope. No, maybe in diode mode. Let's see. Yes, but it's very, very dark. So not really visible. But it's working. The backlight is working. That is at least good news. And we have to get this all into place now. I'm going to turn this off. for now, and also disconnect the lab supply and remove the Tetris cartridge, and probably also remove this thing here. The display has to go in this way around, but we have to solder something on here. I guess since they do it like so. Oh, this should not be removed, I think. No, this should stick into place. It's not really adhering very nicely, but there is a protective foil on there, which I will remove, I would say. But first, let's solder these wires onto there. The anode is plus, the cathode is minus. It's labeled A and K, so that's actually good. Can you see this? Am I in shot? More or less. Let's zoom down a little bit, like so. I'm gonna pre-tin the pads. So I think this whole thing will I'm not quite happy with this. Let's put in some more solder. Yeah, that's much better. This should stick very nicely. And I think maybe there's a protective film on the back side as well. Maybe there isn't. I'm not sure. There is some silver foil around the edges, probably to prevent light leakage or something. The polarizer is in the correct orientation, so I'm just gonna shove it all in here. Hopefully this will slide into place just fine. Goodness. Now, there's some fluid here. I'm not sure if I talked a little bit moist or if it's still some remains of IPA. Good grief, this is not a lot of fun. This needs to fit all inside of here. So how do we get this in? So this is in. Yeah, think something like this. But it is, I think, a little bit higher than it should be. I'm gonna take a little bit of microfiber cloth, clean the front, because I now have a lot of fingerprints on there. Can you still see that? Yeah, roughly. And now we have to solder to these two contacts on that capacitor, making sure that we don't end up blocking the pads for the buttons actually. So that's actually pretty damn annoying. I'm probably gonna shorten those cables to the size that we barely can reach this stuff here. So let me look up which side is which. Actually, I don't need to, because this is minus, this is plus. Okay, capacitors are always labeled, at least these ones are. Maybe I can even melt a little bit of the cable sleeve away. God, this is very smelly right now. Not very nice, but it works. Same goes for the red wire. This is the positive lead. And we can redo it if it doesn't work. Clean the tip. Add some fresh solder. There we go. I'm gonna take a couple of pincers. Yeah, this is actually sticking. Now we can test the whole thing. All right. The backlight is not super bright, actually, I think, but should be good enough to play in darkened rooms, I think. And it's reflective enough that you can play in sunlight. So that's actually pretty neat. So you can't see a lot, so I'm gonna zoom out. Everything's in there. Let's stick in the Tetris cartridge. Let's move the power board a little off to the side. And there we go. Now it's actually pretty darn bright. You can tune the contrast, but that's it. So I think this is probably most optimal. And you of course have some bright spots here because it is very cheaply made. It's only 4 LEDs around the bottom of the screen. And the contrast is still rather crappy because it's the original Game Boy. But we should be able to start a game. There you go. Should even be able to do something here. There you go. Anyway, let's put this thing back together. And yeah, the speaker is still not working, but that's okay. I think that is something the owner can deal with. I think it's the headphone socket, but who knows, who knows. So quick assembly and then the thing is back together, and it is a little bulging, but I knew that from videos I watched about this backlight mod. It's very cramped in there now. It barely fits, but I think so be it. The cross here, the control thingy, the direction keys are not very good. I think those need to be replaced. A and B button and select and start seem fine. But again, that's not my task. I was brought here to install the Backlight mod, which I did. So we need to test it with some batteries. And I've seen that in another video. Let's try just to throw them in. Perfect. So it does seem to work. Let's try this thing out. Oh, it is. It's stuck in the off position. No, I've got to open it up again. Finally, let's see. Oh yeah, there's a little bit of curtain effect down here. The contrast is not super great as expected, but you will be able to play it at night in your bed or whatever, and it will work. The directional pad, the D-pad, that was what I was looking for, is working, but it's very mushy. I would personally replace that. It feels totally worn out. I guess someone played ages and ages of Tetris on this, because especially the down direction is completely gone haptically, and yeah, it's not great. It looks on video actually better than it does in person, because I think there is a so-called bivert mod that makes it more legible, increases the contrast. The best that I can do is something like this, but it looks in person, it looks much worse, much more washed out. It looks more yellow than green. Here on video it looks totally green. But still, yeah, it is working. And the advantage of this thing is it's a cheap mod, and you keep the DMG more original, so to speak. The angles that you can look at it it's abysmal, obviously, right? Okay, but it does what it says on the box. Would I recommend this to anyone? You have to be a little bit experienced, I would say, and not fear working with scalpels and stuff like that to get the polarizer off of the display, and you have to be very careful not to rip the flex, PCBs, etc. If you break it, you can just buy an IPS display, but I think this goes for 10 to 20 bucks, whereas the IPS displays are 50 to 70 bucks. So keep that in mind. It's definitely way more expensive to put an IPS display in. I do like this, but I don't want to do it again, to be honest. The DMG itself looks very nice. It's a very fancy case. Love the design. But as I said, the speaker needs definitely debugging. There's still a lot of corrosion in there, which might come back. I removed some of it with the Dremel, but some of it might come back, and yeah, in a couple of years, and make it not work again. But I think there are replacement PCBs for the main board as well, but you need to donate the chips off of this one, which is possible for someone who can do stuff like that. I do have like 2 bits of dirt in the display, but yeah, that's it, how it is now. But it's definitely playable. Very nice. That's it for today. Thank you very much for watching. Please leave a comment on your favorite DMG mods. What kind of display do you prefer? Share, like, and subscribe. Join me on Mastodon as usual on chaos.social/@root42. You don't have to make an account there, but you can follow me from any instance or just browse the site as it is. And all the other links are also in the down below in the thingy. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye!